Do you know what's worse than being betrayed? It's when the one who betrays you is your own brother. And the worst part, it all happened at my own engagement party. My name is Ethan Cooper. I'm 31. That night, what was supposed to mark the beginning of a new chapter in my life ended up being the moment everything fell apart. The lake house on Lake Travis was glowing under warm lights. I had redesigned every inch of that place myself because I wanted it to be our first home. Every floor tile, every porch light was the result of countless sleepless nights drawing up blueprints, not for a client, but for my future. We planned the engagement party for mid-April, the most beautiful time of year in Texas. Both families and close friends gathered under string lights while soft acoustic music played from the back deck. Everything felt so perfect, it almost didn't seem real. Lauren, my fiancée, wore a white dress that brushed just above the knee. Simple, elegant. She smiled as she accepted everyone's congratulations. I watched her from across the lawn, and my heart still fluttered, just like the first time I met her. Then Ryan, my younger brother, came up beside me like he always used to. He's 3 years younger than me. The family's former rebel suddenly turned golden boy in the last year. "Proud of you, Eighth," he said, raising his glass. But the way he looked at Lauren, there was something in his eyes, something I had ignored until that night. About 20 minutes later, I walked out to the greenhouse at the back of the property. I was planning to grab Lauren so we could start the speeches. What I found instead was Ryan and her together. And they weren't just talking, they were kissing. Not an accident, not a moment of weakness. It was a deep, intimate kiss, like I'd never even existed. I don't remember how I left the party. No one saw me go, no one called out after me. I walked through the crowd, friends laughing, relatives raising their glasses, like a ghost. The music, the laughter, all faded into the background. There was only one sound echoing in my head, a deafening roar of collapse. I drove straight out of town, taking nothing but my phone and the wallet in my jacket. No suitcase, no clothes, not even the engagement ring. I don't remember where I went. I just know that when I finally stopped, it was 3 a.m. I was parked in an empty lot on the edge of San Antonio. I sat there, windows rolled all the way down, letting the cold night air flood in, as if it could freeze the pain sitting in my chest. At 4:12 a.m., Lauren texted me, "I'm sorry you had to see that. I don't know what else to say." Ryan and I, it's been going on for 8 months. 8 months. In those 8 months, I'd been designing our home, picking out nursery colors, choosing furniture, planning a honeymoon in Tuscany, while she was secretly living a whole other life with my brother. 3 minutes later, Ryan messaged me, "I'm sorry, but you're just not the right guy for her. Lauren needs passion. She needs to feel alive. You bring plans, not heart." I used to think there was nothing more painful than a breakup. Turns out, being swapped out by your own blood and then being dismissed as nothing but a plan hurts far worse. I turned off my phone. No reply, no rage, not even tears. I just sat there, staring into nothing, until the first light of dawn colored the windshield in front of me. That morning, I left Austin. No goodbyes, no explanations. I left it all behind. The lake house, the stable job at the architecture firm where I'd just been promoted, even the reputation I'd spent 7 years building. My father, Kenneth Cooper, a well-known attorney for big-name corporations, didn't call me. He knew. I'm sure of it, but he chose silence. My mother, Sharon, sent me a single line, "I know you're hurting, but family is something you don't get to walk away from. To me, that message said it all. They had picked Ryan, like they always did. There was always an excuse for Ryan. He's still young. He's just finding himself. He's a little lost right now. Since we were kids, I was the one who had to be mature, while Ryan was always allowed to mess up. And I accepted it. I told myself I was stronger, so I could carry a little more. But not anymore. This time, the cost was my entire life, and I'm not paying for it again. I once heard someone say, "Betrayal never happens all at once. It creeps in through tiny signs we choose to ignore." And looking back now, I ignored so many. Like the way Lauren's eyes lit up whenever Ryan cracked a joke at dinner. She laughed harder than usual, not a loud laugh, but a quiet, focused one. Or how, at every family gathering, Ryan always ended up sitting next to Lauren, even when the seat beside me was still empty. I remember once, I went to the kitchen to grab dessert, and when I came back out, Lauren and Ryan were standing in the hallway, talking in hushed voices. The moment they saw me, they both fell silent, startled looks flashing across their faces before they quickly looked away. When I asked about it, Lauren just laughed and said, "You're overthinking it. Ryan and I were just talking about the blender." And I believed her. I always chose to believe, because I wanted to protect the world I had built, piece by piece. Even when Ryan suddenly asked to move into the lake house just for a few weeks to detox from the city, I didn't question it. I cleaned out the guest room, even put on fresh sheets, helping my little brother. That felt like the natural thing to do. Lauren had said, "It's nice having Ryan around, makes things less lonely." And I remember smiling. I thought our family was growing closer. The only person who ever looked concerned was my grandma, Estelle. She didn't say anything when I told her Ryan was moving in. She just furrowed her brow and asked, "Are you sure that boy's really changed?" I laughed. I told her, "I believe everyone deserves a second chance, Grandma." But she didn't laugh back. She just slowly shook her head and walked away, like she had just heard a sentence passed down, one I hadn't realized was mine. Maybe deep down, I knew something wasn't right, but I'm the kind of person who believes that if you're kind, if you try hard enough, if you love enough, things will work out. But life doesn't work that way. Doing the right thing doesn't always get you rewarded. Sometimes, it just makes you easier to take advantage of. That night is burned into my memory. Every frame, every sound, every offbeat thump of my heart. Around 8 p.m., right after my father gave his speech, guests drifted into smaller groups, chatting and sipping wine under the back patio lights. The party was smooth, good food, just enough wine. Everyone was toasting to my future with Lauren. I wanted to find her, get ready for the cake cutting and thank you speech, but she was nowhere in sight. I walked around the backyard, past the BBQ grill, through the kitchen, upstairs to the living room. Nothing. I asked my mom. She just said, "Maybe she stepped out back to get some fresh air." I headed out to the garden. Golden fairy lights strung between trees gave everything a storybook glow. The scent of lavender and freshly cut grass hung in the air. This was the garden I'd spent 3 months planning, redesigning, because Lauren loved planting rosemary and cherry tomatoes. I followed the stone path leading to the greenhouse at the far end, where Lauren had been trying to grow tropical flowers. I wasn't thinking anything unusual. I just assumed I'd find her there, alone, admiring the blooms like always, but I was wrong. As I neared the foggy glass door, I heard a soft laugh, a deep voice, then a lighter one, faint but so familiar, it made my skin crawl. I gently pushed the door open, and in that moment, my world shattered into pieces. Ryan's hand was on Lauren's waist. She looked up and met his lips. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't clumsy. It was a slow, deep kiss, the kind of kiss shared only between people who've been intimate for a long time. In that moment, I didn't scream. I didn't charge in. I didn't smash anything. My body didn't react. It simply froze. My heart stopped. My ears went silent. No music, no party, not even the sound of my own breath. There was only one hollow thought in my head. This can't be real. I stepped back, one quiet step at a time, then turned around and retraced the path of stone, past the glowing garden, past clinking glasses and warm congratulations. No one noticed I had just walked away from everything I knew. All I remember was how tightly my fingers clenched my car keys until my hand throbbed with pain. And then I drove, not caring where, just needing to get as far away as I could. I don't remember how long I drove. All I know is, by the time I stopped, the sky was starting to fade. My car was parked in front of an old roadside motel, the only place with a light still on at 4 a.m., room 104. The air smelled musty, the carpet was worn, the sheets were rough, but at least there were no memories of Lauren in here. Nothing familiar, nothing shared. I sat down on the bed, no lights, no TV, just me, sitting in the dark, like I was floating in some endless void. The phone buzzed for the 17th time. I hadn't planned on checking it, but eventually I picked it up. The first name that popped up, Lauren. Ethan, I'm sorry you had to see that. I don't even know where to begin. Ryan and I, it's been 8 months. I read it, then read it again and again. Each time, it cut deeper than the last. 8 months. In those 8 months, I had built a home. I'd designed a life together. I had pictured a family, 2 kids, a boy and a girl. I'd picked paint colors for the nursery, bought picture frames for the kitchen, planned everything, and all of it was just a stage. While I was nothing more than a background character in someone else's script, the second message came almost immediately from Ryan. She needs passion, Eth. She needs fire, not a lifeless plan like yours. I didn't want to hurt you, but you were never what she truly needed. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal or the contempt. To me, Lauren was someone I loved, someone I trusted. To Ryan, she was a trophy, a way to prove he was better than me. And maybe, to Lauren, I was just the safe choice, the steady roof, but not the fire. I put the phone down on the nightstand. The screen still glowed, showing a long list of missed calls. From Mom, Dad, my aunt, a few friends. They didn't know what had happened. They only knew I had disappeared from my own engagement party. None of them knew. That night, my heart had been crushed. Right beneath the string lights I'd hung with my own hands, I lay down, eyes wide open. The ceiling was stained, and the red flicker of the smoke alarm cast a slow, eerie rhythm across the room. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I couldn't find a single word to describe what I was feeling. Only one word echoed over and over in my head. Over. 4 days after that cursed engagement night, I left Texas. No announcements, no goodbyes. Just a single email sent to the architecture firm I'd worked at for 7 years. I need to take a break, indefinitely. Then I drove north, no destination in mind. I just needed to get away from the place I once called home. Eventually, I landed in Denver, Colorado, a city big enough for me to disappear into and far enough that no one would come looking. I rented a small apartment near Lodo. No balcony, no greenery, no memories, just a blank, empty space. And maybe that's exactly what I needed. A place with no past, only the present. I applied for a job at a sustainable design firm, a young company still finding its footing, full of ambition. I didn't expect anything, but 2 weeks later, they called me in for an interview. 3 days after that, I started over, with a lower title, a modest salary, and a tiny windowless office. I didn't care. I needed something to fill the void, and work was the only thing left I could still control. I threw myself into design boards, project proposals, late-night team meetings. I'd get home long after the city fell asleep and leave my apartment before the sun came up. I turned down every drink invite after work, never made small talk with coworkers, never replied to a single message from Austin. I lived like a machine. And then, right in the middle of that numb stretch, I met Claire Bennett. Claire was the lead interior designer for a partner firm we collaborated with on the West Denver Digital Museum, a major landmark project I'd just been assigned to. Our first meeting happened in a 6th-floor conference room. She walked in carrying a laptop, sketches, and a kind of blunt energy that bordered on confrontational. When I presented my lighting concept for the main hall, she looked me straight in the eye and said, "It feels more like a clinic than an exhibit space. Cold lights, gray floors, glass walls, everything's dead." I froze, not because she was wrong, but because so few people ever spoke that directly, especially in a first meeting. That day ended in a full-on creative clash between us. We argued about everything: ceiling height, material colors, lighting angles. But when we finally sat down and started sketching the design from scratch together, what we created was better than anything either of us had before. More balanced, more alive, more human. I left that room feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Seen. Not as someone who'd been betrayed, but as someone with ideas, skills, and something worth hearing. I didn't know it then, but Claire would become a defining part of my life. What I did know on that afternoon was that for the first time in a long time, I felt like I still existed. After that first heated debate, Claire and I started working together more often. She wasn't like anyone I'd ever known. Claire didn't shy away from conflict. She didn't offer empty compliments, but she never made it personal either. Every disagreement was grounded in logic, not emotion. And even when she pushed back, she always listened first. I found myself drawn into late nights in the project room, surrounded by sketches and strong coffee. We talked about more than just design. Little by little, we began talking about things beyond the technical layers. Claire liked to ask questions that made me stop. "Have you ever thought about why you work so much?" I gave a dry laugh. "I just like being focused." She shook her head. "No, you work like you're trying to build a fortress around yourself." I went quiet. That line hit me square in the chest. I always thought I was good at hiding. But with Claire, it was like she saw right through the walls I thought I'd built. That night, with only the two of us left in the office, I told her everything. Not the short version, not the "I got betrayed" summary. The whole thing, every detail, every moment of pain. From the engagement party, to the kiss in the greenhouse, to the 4 a.m. messages, to the cold silence from my parents. I laid it all out. And then waited for a reaction. Shock, pity, discomfort. But Claire just sat there and listened. No interruptions, no quick fixes, no rush to make me feel better. When I finished, she said, "I get it. My best friend, who was also my maid of honor in my first wedding, stole our entire startup fund to launch her own company. She took the client list, the bank account, even the logo we came up with together. I lost the business, lost my best friend, and for a while, I almost lost my belief in myself." I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something I hadn't dared to look for in anyone else. Understanding, not from people who heard my story and said, "That's unfortunate," but from someone who had lived in the same gut-wrenching space. Someone who had been torn apart by someone they once trusted completely. Betrayal, Claire said, doesn't just destroy your trust in others. It wrecks your trust in your own instincts. You start doubting the very things you once knew were true. I nodded. Something stirred in me. Not quite relief, but close. Like, maybe I wasn't completely alone in this. Claire didn't try to fix me. She didn't say, "You'll be okay." She just sat there, present, right when I needed someone. And for me, that was enough. 1 year had passed since the night I left everything behind in Texas. I no longer woke up in the middle of the night with a racing heart from nightmares. I no longer flinched at wedding invitations or engagement posts from old friends. I stopped checking social media to see how Lauren or Ryan were doing. I'd learned how to live in the present, not exactly to forget, but to stop letting the past run my life. And just when I started to think, I've moved on, the past came knocking, this time through a call from an unfamiliar number with an Austin area code. I was in the company's main conference room with Claire and my boss, Gordon, prepping for the biggest pitch of my career, a tech complex project, the largest in the state. The presentation materials were finalized, the model was ready, everything was in place. My phone buzzed once. I glanced at it. Unknown number, Texas. Ignored it. Buzzed again, then a third time, then a fourth. Within 2 minutes, Claire looked at me. "You okay?" I nodded, but my palms had already turned cold. I excused myself and stepped quickly into the hallway, took a deep breath, and answered. On the other end was a choked sob, followed by a panicked woman's voice. "Ethan, Ethan, is that you? Oh God, thank God. It's Mom." I tightened my grip on the phone. "What do you want?" No warmth, no mom, no names. There was a pause, then she broke. "It's Ryan, your brother. He's in serious trouble. Ethan, real trouble. You're the only one who can help." I let out a cold laugh. "Let me guess. Money problems." "No, it's more than that. Everything's falling apart. Ryan committed fraud. He started a fake company, took investment money from his wife's entire family, forged your father's signature, faked financial reports. One investor, David Patterson, your dad's old golf buddy, lost nearly $1 million and is threatening criminal charges." I stayed silent. "He's going to be arrested, Ethan, and if he goes down, everything comes out. Your father, the law firm, the family name, it all collapses. We need $500,000 to settle. We've sold the house, cashed out retirement accounts. It's not enough." "We?" I repeated, my voice low. "I haven't been part of your we since a year ago." "Ethan, please. You're his brother. He's your family." I took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the glass window in front of me, reflecting a man in a tailored suit standing inside the company he helped build from scratch. "I'm not sending a single cent." "Ethan." "I'm not saying this out of anger. I'm saying it because I finally understand. I owe nothing to this family anymore, especially not to the man who stabbed me in the back, then went on to destroy other people's careers and trust." Silence, just shaky, broken breathing on the other end. "You and Dad bet everything on Ryan. Now don't expect me to pay for that bad investment." And I hung up. No rage, no bitterness, just one thing. I was done, completely, and finally. I thought the call from my mother was the end of it. I'd hung up. I'd made my decision. I'd blocked the number. I thought that was it. I was wrong. 3 days later, late at night, I was the last one to leave the office. The basement garage was empty, just the wind hissing through the vents and my footsteps echoing off the cold concrete. I clicked my car key. The headlights blinked in the dark, and that's when I saw them. Two figures stepped out from the shadows behind a concrete pillar. As I passed by, Ryan and Lauren. I froze. Every muscle in my body tensed. Survival instinct kicked in like a live wire. Ryan looked disheveled, wearing a wrinkled, stained suit, like he hadn't slept in days. Lauren looked worse, pale, hollow-eyed, drowning in a coat too big for her frame. "Ethan," Ryan said first, forcing a stiff, awkward smile. "We need to talk." I didn't move, didn't blink, my gaze steady, cold. "There's nothing to say," I replied, my voice low, firm. "Move." He stepped forward, blocking my path. The fake warmth vanished. "You owe me, Ethan," Ryan snapped. "You're living in a luxury apartment, working at a $1 million firm, on track to becoming a partner, and I'm about to go to prison. You think that's fair?" I didn't flinch. "You're not my family anymore," I said, "and I don't owe you a damn thing." That's when Lauren spoke, barely above a whisper. "Ethan, please." I didn't know what Ryan was lying about. He promised there was real funding, a real company. I believed him. Now I'm stuck. I have nothing left. I don't want to go to prison for someone else's mistakes. I turned to her, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of something. Not love, not anger, just sadness. The woman who was once my fiancée, now standing there, hollow and afraid. No trace of the girl who once dreamed about a house by the lake. Ryan scowled at her. "Shut up," he growled, then turned back to me. "If you don't send the money, I'll go to the press. I'll expose you, abandoning your family while your brother rots in jail, sipping cocktails with the elite." I let out a quiet laugh. "What are you going to expose, Ryan? That I didn't commit any crimes? That I refused to fund a con artist? You're the one with everything to hide, and it's finally catching up to you." Ryan stepped forward again, finger jabbing toward me, the other hand clenched tight. "I'll ruin everything. You think you're better than me? I'll bring you down." And then he shoved Lauren hard. She stumbled back, tripping over the edge of the curb. Her head hit the concrete with a sickening crack. I flinched at the sound. Lauren lay still, blood seeping from her forehead. I didn't even get a chance to move before a voice shouted behind me, "Freeze! Hands behind your head, now!" Two security officers stepped into the light, hands on their cuffs, flashlights aimed squarely at Ryan. He spun around, panicked. I didn't move. I'd prepared for this. After the call from my mother, I'd sent Ryan's photo to building security, told them, "If this man shows up, don't approach. Call the police immediately." Now Ryan was face down on the floor, cuffed, shouting in vain. "You don't get it. I just wanted what's fair." An ambulance was called for Lauren. She was breathing, barely conscious. One of the female guards knelt beside her, speaking softly, keeping her calm. I walked to my car, keys clenched tight in my hand. I didn't feel relief, not victory, just silence. The kind that comes when the storm finally gives up, leaving wreckage in its wake, and a sky with nothing left to lose. 1 week after Ryan's arrest, I received an email from a law firm in Seattle. The subject line was surprisingly simple: meeting request, representing Kenneth and Sharon Cooper and Ms. Estelle. I wasn't surprised to see my parents' names, but the last one, Estelle, made me pause. My grandmother had never begged. She never sent guilt-ridden texts. She didn't take sides. She had quietly stayed out of everything. If she was choosing to step in now, there had to be a reason. I agreed to the meeting on one condition. It would be held at my attorney's office in the main conference room with legal representation present on both sides. No public places, no warm cafe settings. I wanted clarity, no more blurred lines. Claire came with me that day, not to speak, just to be there, as part of my present, not their past. When my parents walked in, I didn't see the powerful figures I once trembled to please. I saw two people drained of trust and dignity. My father in an old wrinkled suit, shoulders slumped. My mother, silent, her eyes empty. The only one who still held any strength was Grandma Estelle. After a few opening remarks from the attorney, I cut in. No need for apologies. I'm not here to hear late regrets. I have one question, and I want a truthful answer. I looked directly at them. Why? Why did you choose Ryan, a liar, a destroyer, over me? The son who never betrayed you, who never hurt anyone. Silence. My mother began to cry, not loudly, just quick, shallow sobs. My father stared at the table, eyes locked onto the wood grain as if searching for an escape. And then Estelle spoke. Her voice was steady, not angry, just the slow reading of a verdict. When Ryan was 12, our neighbors, the Millers, had a little Jack Russell Terrier named Buttons. One day, Buttons went missing. They put up flyers, searched for a week. On the 8th day, someone found its body, shallowly buried in the woods behind our house. They thought it was wild animals, but I knew better. She paused, looked at my father, because a few days before that, I saw Ryan pulling Buttons through the fence. I thought he just wanted to play. But then I saw the folding knife your brother, Kenneth, had given him for his birthday. The blade had blood and dirt on it. I brought the knife to you. My father stiffened. Instead of taking Ryan to apologize to the Millers, you locked the knife in your safe. And the next day, you wrote them a $500 check, a donation to help them through their grief. No one spoke. That's when I knew you had chosen to cover it up, to protect him, and from that day on, Ryan knew he could do anything and still be forgiven. She turned to my mother. And you, Sharon, you didn't say a word. You just kept repeating, he's still a kid. He's just testing boundaries. But what you didn't see was the boundary you taught him. As long as you're clever enough, you'll never have to take responsibility. I realized my hands were balled into fists, not out of rage, but because it hurt. All those years, I felt Ryan was coddled, that my parents always turned away when he did something wrong were no longer feelings. They were facts, with history, with blood money, and silence. Estelle looked at me. Ethan, you weren't the first victim. You were just the last, and the biggest. I nodded, and it felt like a boulder I'd carried for decades finally fell off my chest. Heavy, but real. Truth is always heavy, but at least it knows how to heal. The room fell silent after the story about Buttons. My father buried his face in his hands. My mother sat frozen, eyes drifting into nowhere. And me, I just felt empty. No more anger, no more hope, no more longing for change. I straightened my back and gave a subtle nod to my attorney, Carol Hastings, who had been quietly observing the entire meeting. She opened the folder in front of her and pulled out a thick stack of documents. Mr. Kenneth and Mrs. Sharon Cooper, Carol began, her voice calm and clinical, void of any emotion. My client, Mr. Ethan Cooper, has no intention of maintaining any further personal or familial relationship with either of you from this point forward. However, to avoid future financial disputes, Mr. Cooper has established an irrevocable trust managed by our office. She slid the documents across the table toward my parents. This trust will provide a fixed monthly allowance, sufficient for a modest but stable lifestyle. It will also cover full medical insurance for both of you. Then I spoke, my voice steady, cold with clarity. This is not a gift. It's not a moral obligation. It's a severance package, a legal, irreversible line in the sand. My father looked up. For the first time during the entire meeting, he met my eyes. They were hollow. "Ethan, what are you doing?" he whispered. "We're family." I cut him off. "That word has been abused enough, Dad. It means nothing to me anymore, not when it's used to mask guilt and demand silent endurance." My mother began to cry again. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. "You can still live the rest of your lives decently, on my money, but I will no longer be a part of your lives. No phone calls, no letters, no sudden visits claiming an emergency. From now on, everything goes through legal channels," Carol added firmly. "Any attempt to violate the agreement, including trying to contact my client directly, will result in the immediate termination of the trust." No one said a word. The room felt stripped of air. All that remained was the sound of turning pages, pens scratching signatures, slow, unsteady. When they finished signing, I stood up. Claire stood with me. I didn't look back. "This meeting is over." And I walked away. No longer a son seeking justice, but someone entirely new, finally closing the last door that ever led back. It's been a year since I put an end to my ties with my old family. No more calls from unknown numbers, no handwritten letters, no late apologies, just silence. And I know it's the kind of silence I earned. With every ounce of courage I had to give, Ryan was sentenced to 4 years in prison for fraud, forgery, and assault. I didn't attend the trial. I didn't read the verdict. My lawyer told me it was over, and I left it right where it belonged. In the past, Lauren filed for divorce soon after the sentencing. She left the city. My grandmother said the last time she saw her, Lauren only left behind one sentence: "I chose the wrong person, and what I lost was the best part of me." As for my parents, they moved to a small town in another state, living off the trust fund I established. No one talks about the Cooper scandal anymore. No one cares. And maybe that's the harshest punishment of all, to live in quiet obscurity. And me? Claire and I are standing on a plot of land outside Boulder, a place we bought together after wrapping up the museum project. In front of us is a gentle hillside, the air thick with pine, sunset casting gold over the distant lake. We're designing our first home, together, not a luxurious mansion, not a fortress to hide from pain, but a home made of glass, cedar, and steel, open to the landscape with nothing to conceal, and nothing left to hide. Claire places her hand on my shoulder and smiles. "We don't need a place to hide," she says. "We need a place to live." I used to believe justice would feel like the moment the ones who hurt me finally fell, that I'd feel satisfaction watching them lose everything. But I didn't. When that moment came, what I felt was emptiness, a quiet stillness, not joy, not sadness, just peace. And then I realized true victory isn't watching them fall. It's standing tall and moving forward without needing them at all. I once thought I was an architect of buildings, but the most important thing I've ever built was my own life. You don't get to choose the family you're born into, but you do get to choose who walks beside you from here on out. And sometimes, forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of holding on.